All right, everyone, bring it in for the Week 5 preview already. It's hard to believe we're saying that, but we are Week 5 in the NFL. We have 4 teams on bye this week already. I say this every year, but we wait weeks and months and days and minutes and seconds for football to get here. And once it's finally here, it goes so quick each and every year. But I feel like Week 5, we start to really have an identity and a clear picture on some of these teams, whether your preseason predictions have translated over well, which teams have surprised, which teams have disappointed out of the gate. I mean, you can start making some better judgments on these teams. We've seen a ton of underdogs early in the year. I don't really think there's been a real dominant looking team yet. The Vikings, maybe the best team in the league. The Chiefs sitting there undefeated, but they certainly haven't looked their best. They haven't really looked good. I think we can say for 2 regular seasons now, if you're counting this one, but never to count them out, and they still keep finding ways to get it done at the end of the day. But the season rolls on, Week 5 already, as we said, Kev. But welcome back. Eagles fall flat on their face again, and they, I think, hit the bye at the perfect time.
Yeah, super excited not to watch them this week, not have to worry about it, just watch Red Zone and have a nice, relaxing Sunday.
Yeah, well, until the Phillies play and probably give us a heart attack as well. But I think we're starting to see the board a little bit better. We've struggled kind of out of the gate. I personally had my best week, I think it was last week. 9-8 overall, 4-1 straight up, 4-1 against the spread, so did really well there. When I got to the over-under, struggled a little bit. 0-5 on my totals. 1-0 on my dog of the week, which was the Broncos. I didn't think that they were going to win. I just liked them to cover the 7.5. They win outright at the Jets, plus 350 on the money line if you took that one. And then 0-1 on my lock, which was the Steelers-Colts under. Steelers, I guess, can't play perfect defense every week. And I was really kind of banking on that. And Joe Flacco, maybe, a better fit for the Colts than Shane Steichen than Anthony Richardson. You go 7-10, 3-2 against or 3-2 straight up, 2-3 against the spread, 1-4 on over under, 1-0 on your dog there with the Commanders, and 0-1 on your lock. You had the Steelers, but you are now 7-1 total on your dog of the days and locks of the week. So you keep it rolling with a good percentage there. And like we said, we roll into Week 5 now. We got games on Thursday night to break down this week. We got the first London game of the year, a 9:30 a.m. kickoff on Sunday. And then we roll throughout the day, 1 o'clock, 8 o'clock on Sunday. So a full slate to get into, and then our dog of the day and our lock of the week. But we'll start off on Thursday Night Football. The Bucs at 3-1 coming off the ass kicking that was Sunday's win over the Eagles. They travel to Atlanta. Short week to play the 2-2 Falcons, 8:15 on Thursday Night Football. Amazon Prime. Falcons, 1.5-point favorite, over under 43.5. You like the Falcons at home here, Kev? This is already their 4th home game of the year in 5 weeks.
Yeah, no, I'm going with the Bucs to win this one on the road. Bucs 23, Falcons 20. So the Bucs cover the 1.5. They're getting under 43.5. I was high on Atlanta coming into the season, but if Saquon had caught that ball in week 2 where the Eagles defense showed any sort of life on that final drive, I think we'd be talking very differently about the Falcons. They do have so many weapons, and that's really what intrigued me before the year, and I thought Kirk could really unlock them. But they're only putting up 18 points a game, and currently Bijan is only getting 15 touches a game, which I just don't think is enough, given his playmaking ability in both the running and passing game. The Bucs, on the other hand, have looked really good. Baker has a rating of 106.9 with 10 total TDs, 8 in the air, 2 on the ground for him, and he also just has 2 picks. I think the game will be close, and if Atlanta can get pressure on Baker, who has taken 15 sacks this year, I think they can definitely 100% win, but I'll ride with the Bucs here. They've been hot going back to even last year, so I think they beat the Falcons.
Yeah, very impressive showing from the Bucs on Sunday against the Eagles. Going into that game, I kind of talked about it last week. Without Lane, AJ, and Devontae, I thought it was going to be hard, especially against a defense led by Todd Bowles that has really dominated Jalen Hurts pretty much time in and time out that they've played against each other, and Nick Sirianni and his entire coaching staff. But Falcons pull out a close one. Younghoe Koo continues to prove to be one of the best kickers in the league. So 2 teams coming off big wins last week. I think it's going to be a very close 3-horse race, though, in the NFC South between the Bucs, Falcons, and Saints. I could see any one of those 3 teams winning the division, and even making some noise in the playoff. I do not think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, though, Kevin, are getting enough credit around the league for how well they've played over basically the last year and a half. Dating back to December 3rd of last season, including the playoffs, the Bucs are now 9-3 over their last 12 games. They've been finding ways to win week in and week out for basically 3/4 of a season now. So this is a team that I think you need to put more respect on their name, and they kind of play with a chip on their shoulder. Very talented group and a well-coached group. I think Todd Bowles has really resurrected his coaching career and has made a nice career here in Tampa Bay. And I do think that they're a legit threat to win the division. With all that being said, though, about the Buccaneers, I'm going to go with the Falcons at home in this one. Short week, divisional game, and the Bucs just played Sunday, as we talked about. They showed it on the TV 100 times, but it was a really hot game. 105 degrees down there was the feel like. That takes a lot out of you, especially on a short week. It's going to be tough to kind of come back and bounce back from that, even though that they won that game. Falcons have had both their wins now decided by 3 or less points, and with the line sitting at 1.5, I expect another close game. And the Falcons are showing they're a team that can go out there and win these close games. So with all that being said, with the Bucs traveling, short week, coming off a really hot, exhausting type of game on Sunday, I think it kind of lines up for the Falcons here to take advantage of some of these shortcomings by Tampa Bay. So I'm going to go with the Falcons at home, 23-20. So I'll go Falcons -1.5, under 43.5 there. All right, Sunday now, probably I think we could agree the surprise team in the league to start the year with the Vikings at 4-0. They will be playing the 2-2 Jets, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. Kickoff on the NFL Network here. Vikings are a 2.5-point favorite over under 40.5 over in London. What are your thoughts on this matchup? And are you buying the Vikings as a legit NFC threat? Dare I say Super Bowl threat?
Yeah, I am. I'm going Vikings beating the Jets 27-21. Vikings -2.5 over 40.5. I don't know how much it matters that this game is over in London, but how can you not pick the Vikings in this game? Sam Darnold is still lighting it up, and it's also been against very good teams. Their 3 wins have been against the Niners, Texans, and Packers, all who were playoff teams a year ago, and definitely came into the season expecting to compete for the Super Bowl. The offense is just really good with Jefferson, Addison, and Aaron Jones. And then the defense as well is playing at a really high level, which you need when you're facing Aaron Rodgers. And then on the Jets side, it just seems like they always have stuff going on that doesn't really relate to football. This week, people are talking about Rodgers sitting on the bench with the towel over his head and whether him and Salah can agree on the use of their cadences on offense. So I'll take the Vikings to continue to play at a high level over the dysfunctional Jets.
Yeah, I saw today on Pat McAfee too. Apparently, he said that his knee is swollen and banged up. So, as Komets would always say, it's the Jets. They'll find a way to mess it up somehow. But I do think it is time to admit that the Vikings are for real. Going on the road to Green Bay and winning is never easy, and the Vikings did that. And they controlled the game a majority of the way. The Packers came back kind of like Alabama did, Georgia did on Saturday night, where it looked like the game was kind of put away. Maybe took their foot off the gas a little bit. And here comes the trailing team coming back, but the Vikings find a way to seal it at the end. Sam Darnold, hat tip to him. I looked at the MVP odds yesterday. I think in front of him, it's Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, CJ Stroud. Then you have in his own class in the NFC there, Sam Darnold. Pretty wild to think about. But I think the most impressive thing about Sam Darnold so far is that he's taken really good care of the football. For what we've usually seen from him in his previous stops, he's been a really turnover-prone guy, especially throwing interceptions. He's only thrown 3 interceptions this year. And then you have the addition of Jordan Addison back in the lineup last week. He caught a couple touchdown passes, Justin Jefferson as well. It makes his offense even more dangerous, especially with a great play caller like Kevin O'Connell. The Jets seem to have some offensive issues right now. Stop me if you've heard that before. And the passing game seems to be limited. It doesn't seem like Rodgers and Wilson are on the same page. And Nathaniel Hackett, it sounds like, is one of the main kind of root causes of this issue. I mean, they talk about all the time where every time either him or Salah get panned over to on the sideline, it looks like they're just kind of in disarray, don't really know what's going on, a lot of just like clapping and stuff. I expect Brian Flores to run some circles around Nathaniel Hackett this weekend and give this offense some fits. And especially, too, if Rodgers' knee actually is banged up and he's not 100%, for a guy that definitely has lost a step or two and hasn't been, the mobile kind of out-of-the-pocket quarterback throwing on the run, that we saw his entire career in Green Bay doesn't sound like a good formula, especially against a blitz-heavy defense here with the Vikings and Brian Flores. I think the Vikings win in London, and I think Robert Saleh's job status could be in limbo very, very soon. With Aaron Rodgers, this is a team that was expected to be a Super Bowl contender. They had a 2-3 year Super Bowl type window. You fall to 2-3 here. The Bills look like they continue to look. He might get fired after that plane ride home from London if this is an ugly game. That's what I'm going to kind of stake my claim out there and predict right now. Vikings 24, Jets 14, Vikings minus 2.5 in the under of 40.5 in there. Third game of the week, probably my most fascinating matchup of the week in terms of outcome-wise. These two teams I think could go in complete different directions depending the result of this game. The Ravens at 2-2 at the Bengals, who are 1-3. Rare you ever have a 1-3 team on this show. 1 o'clock on CBS. Ravens 2.5-point favorite, over under sitting there at 50.5. Ravens impressive performance at home on Sunday night over the Bills. You think they can keep that rolling into this week, Kevin?
Yeah, I had the Ravens winning by 4, 24-20. So the Ravens minus 2.5, under 50.5. This, like you were kind of talking about, is a big game with big implications, especially for it being only week 5. The Bengals lose here, their season's like seriously in doubt. And then if the Ravens lose, they could be in last place in the AFC North at the end of the week. The Ravens do seem to be finding their stride, though, with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. And they get a really good matchup here with the Bengals. Cincinnati's letting up over 145 rushing yards a game, and I think we all know what the Ravens want to do. They just want to run the ball, then let Lamar do his thing in the passing game, probably only throwing 15 to 20 times a game. The Ravens secondary has not been as good as we thought it would be after 4 weeks, but I think they can control the clock with the running game and Lamar making throws when needed. Joe Burrow-led teams obviously are always going to have a chance, but I think they end up falling to a 1-4 here.
Yeah, as I said in the beginning, I think this is my most fascinating matchup of the week, the one I'm going to have my eyes closest on. Are the Bengals back, or did they just look better because they played the Panthers last week? And meanwhile, the Ravens might have found their stride. I was on here saying last week that it seems like things are a little off with them and kind of the post-game comments that some players had, especially Lamar after that Cowboys game. But it seems like they've found their stride, and Derrick Henry is really starting to find his stride and emerge, rushing for multiple touchdowns last week, nearly going for 200 yards. I think this game, though, means much more to the Bengals, sitting at 1-3 at home. You lose this, it's going to be a really uphill climb to win the division, I think. If you fall to 1-4 and the Ravens then move to 3-2, especially losing to them at home. But if the Bengals do find a way to win this game, they have 4 winnable games coming up with the Giants, Browns, Eagles, and Raiders. With a win here, I think they could easily be sitting at 5-3 at the midway point of the season, and we could look back at the beginning of the year and just say there was another slow start for the Bengals again, but Joe Burrow and company found their way to dig themselves out of it. Can they stop Derrick Henry, though? And what appears to be a Ravens offense that is hitting their stride? The Bengals defense has some major question marks. I'm going to say no, and I'm going to say the point spread indicates that as well, with the Ravens being favored on the road here. I think that's screaming that Baltimore is going to win this football game. I'm going to have them winning this one in a close one, though. 27-24, so I'll go Ravens minus 2.5 in the over 50.5. But as I said at the beginning, we could really see these two teams go in opposite directions if the Ravens find a way to win this one and the Bengals kind of fall flat on their face. All right, we go to an awesome AFC game, maybe an AFC title preview down the line. If things shake right, I think we could see these two teams in that game, the 3-1 Bills at the 3-1 Texans, a 1 o'clock game on CBS. Bills, 1-point favorite here on the road after that beatdown in Baltimore last weekend. Over-under is 47.5.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be a really close one. I'm going Bills winning by 1, 24 to the Texans 23. So the Texans would end up pushing there with the +1 they're getting and under 47.5. I'll take the Bills to rebound after a rough performance against Baltimore. I think the Texans are very, very good, and I think they can definitely win this game. I just don't know if they have the same dominate and smash mouth running game that the Ravens do that kind of set the Bills behind from the jump. The Ravens came out just dominated, and it led to just Josh Allen playing from behind, not being able to able to rely on the running game. So I think this game is going to be much more the Bills' pace. They'll be able to rely on James Cook a little bit more. But the Texans defense is quietly having a very solid season. And I think for the Texans, Stephon Diggs is going to have to score in this game just to kind of show Josh Allen, like, hey, look at me. You could have had me, but I left because you didn't throw me the ball enough. I do hope CJ Stroud doesn't force the ball to him, kind of like what we saw out of Josh Allen last year, forcing the ball to him a little bit too much. And then on the Bills defense, it does hurt a lot that Von Miller is suspended for 4 games. That is a big loss for them, but I'm going to take the Bills anyway here.
Yeah, you brought up a good point there. I think I'm going to take a Stephon Diggs touchdown on this one, a little revenge game. Not much analysis for me on this one. I'm going to keep it simple. I think the Bills were playing over their head to start the year. Josh Allen was playing really well, and I still think this is probably the team that comes out of the AFC, especially with, the dysfunction that the Dolphins seem to be having, the Patriots coming into the year, one of the worst rosters in the league, and I think they've proven that. And the Jets, obviously, the dysfunction. I still think the Bills will win the division, but after 3 weeks, we were on here saying as well, it might have been the best team in football. It just goes kind of goes to show you that this is such a week-to-week league. I think season's end, they're more of a 10-7 type team. And I think the Texans playing in this division as well are going to be more of a 12-5 to 13-14. I like the Texans being at home in this one. CJ Stroud, only 2 years in the league, is a proven winner and a clutch player. They've been really good at home as well. I'm just going to keep it simple on this one and take the Texans plus money as well. It's definitely going to be a bet for me this weekend. Texans 28, Bills 24, Texans +1 over 47.5 could be one of the trap lines of the week, and the Bills bounce back. But after those games that you play Baltimore and you have to play a guy like Derrick Henry, your defenders might be a little bit sluggish the next week. So I think this is a good spot for the Texans at home. Find a way to get it done. All right, our 5th and final game of the week, we go to Sunday Night Football. I'm calling this one the mid-off. I think this is a battle of 2 mid teams that are going to be competing for a 9-8 record by year's end. That's the 2-2 Cowboys at the 3-1 Steelers. 8:20 p.m. on Sunday Night Football on NBC. Steelers are 2.5-point favorite. Over under is 42.5.
Yeah, I have the Steelers winning a super close one, 21 to the Cowboys 20. So the Cowboys do end up covering, and the under 42.5 hidden. This one really confused me. My first natural reaction was, of course, the Cowboys are going to win. They always have a pretty good, solid offense, and then the defense always just does enough. But then I started looking into it, and I don't know. I'm just one of those people who often picks against the Steelers because I just don't see how they continue to win with such minimal offense. But with that being said, they are playing a defense that has not been very good this year. And then on top of that, they're going to be without their two clear-cut best players, DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons, probably not playing this week, which is obviously just two massive losses for them. And then Dak on the offensive side of the ball is just going to have a ton on his shoulders against a super good defense of the Steelers. He does not have much of a run game to support him. And then outside of CeeDee Lamb and maybe Jake Ferguson sometimes, there's no one to really scare you or worry about too much. I think the Steelers D-line is going to be in Dak's face all day and make his life very difficult. And then the Steelers offense has proven they can do enough to win games, super low scoring games. And if Justin Fields is able to make some plays with his legs, and then also they're running attack Najee out of the backfield, I think they're going to do enough here to win a close game.
Yeah, it was one of my main takeaways from last week that the Steelers kind of came back to earth and proved that your defense can't be playing lights out football each and every week. At some point, you need to be playing complementary football, and it's not like they were playing a super dynamic offense, so like what we saw from the Ravens last week, or what we saw from the Bills a few of the first weeks of the season. Hell, even what the Eagles looked like in week 1 when they had all their guys at their full disposal. They were playing a Colts team that was really struggling. Joe Flacco had to come in the game. It wasn't the greatest offense that they were going up against, and they showed, defenses can have an off week, and you're going to have to step up and play some complementary football in weeks, and that's why I think this team certainly has a ceiling. When you look at Dallas, I think they're really struggling to run the ball right now. You kind of touched on it, but heard something today. The longest rush they have all year is by CeeDee Lamb, a wide receiver, obviously, and that rush was only 12 yards. The run game has been pretty much non-existent. The weapons outside of Lamb and Ferguson, as you were touching on, aren't really scaring teams. Cook shows up every once in a while. Tolbert shows up every once in a while. But you got the corpse of Zeke. Rico Dowdle hasn't looked that great. A lot's on Dak's shoulders right now, and you pay him all this money. You pay him to be the highest paid quarterback in NFL history to go out there and deliver with not as good of a surrounding cast as some other guys would have. But that's kind of the circumstance that the Cowboys are in. They have so much money dedicated and paid to some of these top guys. They can't really build as great of a supporting cast. Sounds like Mike is going to be out this week. And as I said at the beginning, I think this is two pretty similar average teams that are likely heading for 9-8 seasons, maybe find their way into like the 7th spot in the wild card. Who knows in the NFC East? We'll see what the Eagles come out to be, and really high on the Commanders and what they've looked to start. But I don't think it's out of the question that the Cowboys miss the playoffs this year. We're calling this one a mid-off. As I said, I'm going to just go with the home team in this one in an ugly game. Probably just bet the under of 42.5, but I'll go Steelers 20, Cowboys 17. So Steelers minus 2.5 and under 42.5 in there. All right, we go to the dog of the day and the lock of the week. As we said, Kevin, you are now 7-1 on your combined dog of the day and lock of the week, hitting your dog last week, losing on your lock. I hit on my dog last week, lost on my lock as well. I'm going to go to the Cardinals for my dog of the day this week, plus 7.5 against the 49ers. The 49ers, as we know, still banged up a little bit. My stat last week on the show was NFL underdogs of 5.5 points are ridiculous. 14-2 against the spread this season with 10 outright wins, 5 of those wins being in week 3. Last week I came on here with the Broncos. That was my stat of the week last week as a 7.5 point underdog at the Jets. I'm going to roll with that again this week with the Cardinals. The underdogs have been eating this year. And as I said at the beginning of the show, there hasn't been teams that have looked super dominant this year to really leave you kind of thinking and wondering like they're going to go out there and blow this team out of the water. I mean, we saw the Ravens do it to the Bills, but no one was really expecting that. Underdogs have been great, very profitable to start the year. So I'm going to continue to roll with them. I think the Cardinals' backs are kind of against the wall and need a good showing in this one after falling flat last week against the Commanders.
Yeah, I'm going to follow the same logic as you. I'm going the Saints plus 5.5 versus the Chiefs. They are also plus 180 on the money line. The Chiefs are just playing all close games. They are winning them because they are the Chiefs. They still have Mahomes, but they do have a ton of injuries. And then I think the Saints' offense and defense is good enough to just keep this game close enough to cover that 5.5.
All right, and lock of the week, I'm going to go with your dog from last week with the Commanders, -3 versus the Browns at home. I was looking today. Think I might bet them before this week, but they're plus 115 to make the playoffs right now, -140 to miss. That offense has been electric, been damn good. You can argue that they've been the best offense in the league through the first 4 weeks. They get to play a Browns team that is in disarray, obviously, with Deshaun Watson. And it seems like the fan base is just really out on this team right now. Good chance for the Commanders to continue to keep it rolling. They're plus 240 to win the division. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility as well, with how the Eagles have looked up and down, the Cowboys, as we just talked about, and obviously the Giants, most likely going to be finishing in the basement. Really high on how this Commanders team has looked to start the year. I love them -3 versus the Browns at home for my lock of the week.
Yeah, my lock of the week, I'm going Packers -3 against the Rams in LA. Jordan Love looked pretty rough in the first half last week against the Vikings, but they did come back in the second half, made it a ball game. He looked a lot better. I think he'll continue to build on that after coming back from his injury. And then the Rams just have a ton of injuries on both sides of the ball. So Packers -3.
All right, well, that will do it for the NFL Week 5 preview, our big 5 games of the week, and our locks and our dogs. As we say, it goes fast once it's here. It'll be even weirder next week when week 6, and can't believe it's actually already October. But here we go. We're rolling, looking to continue to see the board better and continue to cash some of these tickets. But as always, everyone, thank you for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, and we'll talk next week.